want to identify this stuff, these pea soup, green algae blooms. But if it doesn't look like this, and you're still suspicious, check with the state, because sometimes it looks like these bubbles again that are floating around. And you can go to the website. Here's the New York HAB website, and it will show you on a map different lakes that have had algal blooms, and it gives you information about that. Now, unfortunately, it tells you what happened a couple of days ago, and we'll talk a little about that in a second. You could look at Otsego Lake and look, and I had done this initially, and it said that it was empty. It didn't show any. You can also look it up by county and look at a couple of lakes. And if you grew up in Wisconsin like I did and try to call it Lake Otsego, you won't get a response because that's not its name. And I have to keep relearning that phenomenon. Anyway, here we have the lake, and it doesn't show any blooms. This is back in the first part of August. Candidago at that time was having some blooms that are identified, and it is different in that it's smaller, lakes shallower, it warms faster, and has septic systems all around it instead of just on one side, and a little bit different situation. Also, if you're planning to use the parks, that is on a completely different map, unfortunately, that is not clear to a lot of people. So you have to leave that website and go to a different one. This is the maps that looks like the same piece of geography, obviously. A little hard to tell which lake might be yours, but if you zoom in on it, you can see a lake that looks like ours. And at this time, there had been a bloom, and you get information from Glimmerglass State Park about the beaches and what's going on and what caused it to be closed. And there's lots of information that they have available. So it takes an additional day to get information into this map. You also can get information on what happened within the last couple of weeks. So if you think an area might be risky to have another bloom a second time, that may be information that would be useful to you in making decisions about where to go. So up in this corner, this is why it takes so long to evaluate the water. There's somebody looking out at the lake and identifies what they think is a bloom. The report's called into the DEC and photos are sent. The DEC will send somebody out to confirm the report and collect samples. Here they're getting the samples. They get transported back to the laboratory where they're confirmed with a microscope. They're freeze thawed twice. Remember, that will release the toxins so that they can be assayed. And then they're analyzed to confirm whether the toxins are there or not. The concentrations are assessed to assess the level of risk to us. And this can take a day or two or three to get to the map. And that's a lot of work that goes on in between people identifying something. And that's why it is at this point in time. So this is the take home for me. Look before you or your dog gets in the water, and that's worth a lot. So avoiding it is important. If you get exposed, you may feel uncomfortable and ill for a while, but you're probably not going to die. Dogs are much more likely to get sick and die, and that's important for you to know. Don't ever drink the surface water, and then check with the websites, OCCA, New York DEC websites. I think the DOH has one as well. Parks has it. And again, avoidance is the key. Now, just quickly before we leave this, we've said a lot of bad things about cyanobacteria, but I want people to understand how important these organisms are. If you think what Earth was like now 4 billion years ago, that's a long time ago. The Earth was very different. It was hot. It had an atmosphere of carbon dioxide and methane, and it had a little water vapor in it, but there was no oxygen to cause the methane to turn into carbon dioxide, which is much less. So it was hot. It was 80 degrees Celsius. That's about 176 degrees Fahrenheit. So you wouldn't have a lot of people enjoying the water at that time. And the oceans pretty much covered all the land. Uh, and then the great oxidation event occurred about between 2.5 billion years ago, when the cyanobacteria started making oxygen, and they started changing the methane to carbon dioxide, and oxygen began to become more prevalent. And this allowed huge things to happen that are different. Now, this took a long time. So we're talking about, thousands and thousands of years. But we end up with an Earth where we have snow and ice at the poles, so that the water levels fell, and we have a much cooler atmosphere around it. And now there's enough oxygen that there are some corals and green algae are starting to occur, and allows plants and animals to evolve and crawl onto the land. This couldn't have happened if it wasn't for the cyanobacteria making oxygen way back over 2 billion years ago. Well, I hope you found this useful. We're fortunate to have volunteers from many areas and people who work for our state departments, DEC, EPA, DOH, Village of Cooperstown, the members of OLA, OCCA, the Otsego Land Trust, and members of the Watershed Committee. I hope I haven't overlooked anybody really important, but there's lots of people working on this, trying to make things better. We hope that we will continue to find this to be useful for swimming, fishing, boating, and just plain looking at the water. A lot of people like that. And a cooperative approach for everybody pitching in is the way we think this will work. And our philosophy is summarized, or at least my philosophy is summarized with this African proverb, which I just love. It refers to how elephants walk hundreds of miles to find safe water when it's scarce. The proverb is, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's what we hope. We'll be working with the leaders of the groups going far together to find safe water of everybody that can chip in. That's the end of my presentation. And if you have questions, if you send them along to the Watershed Committee, we'll be happy to respond to them. Thank you for your attention.